pleasure to bring up to people who I know very well, Alicia Matz and Tori Burmeister. So these are both PhD students at Boston University. Alicia Matz is currently a PhD student at BU with an interest in Augustan literature, gender and sexuality and reception. She works on advocating for disability in academia, and she advocates for inclusive pedagogy and is a co-founder of Hestia. Tori Burmeister is a current PhD student, a candidate at BU as well. She's currently writing her dissertation on witchcraft and concepts of space in ancient Rome. She likewise advocates for inclusive pedagogy and is also co-founder of Hestia, about which we're going to learn more in a moment. So let me introduce them now and give the title of their talk, which is Hestia, Graduate Student Self-Taught Pedagogy. And for anyone of interest, the handout that they're about to use to show you is available on the website. So Alicia, which one would like to begin? Do you want to take it away, Alicia?
Tori's starting.
Okay. Tori, show your face.
Okay, hi.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, the handout is online. We aren't going to be really referencing it that much, but it does have the bibliography of almost all of the material we've used in our group over the past 2 years. So for the past 2 years, Alicia Matz, Ian Nurmi, Ryan Pascoe, and myself have been the co-organizers of a graduate student-led self-taught pedagogy reading group called Hestia. Hestia's goal is crucially important for our graduate department. We aim to explore different methods for teaching about the ancient world in ways that disrupt traditional, potentially damaging pedagogical practices, decenter outdated and prejudiced teaching lenses, and treat difficult, potentially triggering topics in sensitive ways. We conduct weekly meetings wherein we discuss different pedagogical theory, brainstorming ways to apply theory to our own teaching practices. These weekly meetings also provide a safe space to voice concerns and find support and advice for different challenges we have individually faced as beginning instructors. Hestia exists because it has to, because we have no other avenue for learning how to become better teachers but to organize and teach ourselves. As Hestia has grown and developed, we have become active participants in a broader conversation about best pedagogical practices when teaching about the ancient world in general. Handing it off to Alicia.
We'll tell you when we're going to switch off, if that'll help. So, as instructors of ancient materials, we quickly began stumbling upon immensely difficult subject material and struggling with the best way to teach it to undergrads. How do you balance the cultural significance of certain stories, like the rape of Lucretia, with sensitivity towards the students in your classroom? How do you teach the slavery unit in a way that decenters enslavers and encourages critical discussion? How do you teach languages and cultures that have been misappropriated by hate groups in a classroom that may well include members of those same groups? Basically, how do we make our students feel welcome in the classroom when the very material we teach has the potential to alienate them? The ancient world is a minefield of difficult topics, and as beginning instructors, we had to confront the best ways to teach our students in ways that acknowledge the deeply problematic aspects of the subject. But individually teaching ourselves how to teach without external support quickly became isolating, overwhelming, and often frustrating. Throughout our experiences teaching in graduate school, we, the founders of Hestia, felt that we were essentially thrown into the incredibly complex waters of college-level instruction with very little preparation. At our university, first-time graduate student instructors from every discipline attend a one-day teaching orientation. The orientation consisted of a few speeches and informal workshops, and while it offered some potentially useful strategies, there's just no way to cover all of the intricacies of teaching in one 8-hour session. Moreover, it couldn't begin to touch upon the problems specific to teaching about the ancient world. We lacked any sort of formal training, workshop opportunities, or devoted space to ask questions about teaching or brainstorm better pedagogical practices. Now over to Tori.
When we came together to start Hestia, it was because we wanted to become the best teachers we possibly could be, and we wanted to figure out how to do that with the help of our fellow grad students. We started by meeting once in a while to compile resources. Essentially, we made an enormous bibliography of materials ranging from Eidolon articles to books about different subjects, including pedagogical theory and critical theory. As we waded through the long list of materials, it became clear that we couldn't simply provide this bibliography as a resource to our fellow graduate students and move on. We quickly determined that the best way to look through these materials and figure out how to apply them to our experiences as teachers would be to read them and discuss them together as a group. For us, meeting weekly just made sense. It would ensure that we had enough time throughout the semester to cover a lot of different material without losing momentum. One of our main concerns was just making sure that people would have an opportunity to show up when they wanted and still be able to take valuable discussions away from the meetings, even if they could only make a few meetings each semester, or if they didn't have time to work in additional extracurricular reading. Meeting weekly put less pressure on each meeting to go perfectly or fit in too much information. It meant that we could have the kind of candid, honest discussions we wanted on a regular basis and reflect on our teaching simultaneously. And so Hestia was born. Alicia.
No, it's still you.
Is it? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. All right, back to me. In the 2 years Hestia has existed, perhaps the biggest takeaway that we've had as co-organizers is the need for commitment and flexibility. Our model has shifted each semester, sometimes each month or even each week, to reflect what is or isn't working. We've made big changes along the way, and we've also made small adjustments. But a few keystones of our organization were developed quickly and have remained the same. First, we hold meetings for graduate students in the department every week with an assigned reading to discuss. Second, that weekly meeting is only open to graduate students to encourage a more authentic, unguarded discussion that reflects the actual experiences we are all going through in a safe space. Third, that we keep our practices as transparent as possible, including putting our discussions on to Twitter at Hestia_BU, and sending emails and encouraging the entire department to come each week. And finally, that we, the co-organizers, meet separately on a regular basis to discuss what's working, what isn't, and what we want to do in the future. Now it's Alicia.
That's me. For each of the 4 semesters that Hestia has been active, we've attempted a different approach to the readings we assign, as well as the way weekly discussions are structured. These adjustments have come from a kind of trial and error process we anticipated when we started. We see what works and what doesn't, we make adjustments, and we move forward. Our first semester, in fall 2018, we essentially did a topic of the week style when assigning readings and carrying out discussions. We, the co-organizers, would find articles related to topics we knew we had to teach and then assign them. For example, one of our very first meetings was about the different ways that translation choices affect readings of ancient rape scenes, potentially skewing them to appear consensual. We used different translations of the Homeric hymn to Demeter, as well as translations of different scenes from Ovid, paired with Leo Caron's article, Rape and Rape Victims in the Metamorphoses, and Stephanie McCarter's Eidolon article, Rape Lost in Translation. Many members found the idea of comparing different modern English translations with the actual text in its original ancient language so beneficial that they have incorporated it into their own teaching. Our whole first semester, Eidolon was an invaluable resource insofar as providing accessible texts that were engaging and critical at the same time. In fact, we had almost an embarrassment of riches when it came to readily available editorials on teaching or addressing sensitive topics in ancient Mediterranean studies. What worked about this structure was its ability to quickly foster discussions in our weekly meetings. Everyone in the room had some experience with confronting each of these topics, either as a student or in the role of an instructor, and we spent most of the semester talking about our own experiences as they did or didn't reflect the reading we'd chosen for the week. Discussion from this semester felt readily available and easy to start, but at a certain point, we felt that we weren't doing quite enough. Hestia began to take the shape, essentially, of a vent session, and readings often seemed to fall to the wayside behind sharing our own experiences instead. While there is absolutely immense value in discussing personal challenges, thoughts, and experiences in the classroom, the co-organizers began to feel that the original purpose of Hestia wasn't being met. That is, the betterment of ourselves as instructors and our ability to improve and even transform our pedagogical practices. We wanted to take more of an approach that would push us and our colleagues to confront broader issues and apply more of a critical eye to our field in general. Moreover, the whole semester lacked any sort of predictable structure. As a result, each week the co-organizers had to scramble to form a consensus on the topic for the next week. There was no organizational flow to our reading choices, and as a result, discussions were sometimes uneven. Certain topics yielded discussions that would go over our allotted 1 hour, and in fact ought to have taken place over several weeks, while others seemed less urgent or complicated. Tutorial.